bist du sie aller Ehre. Was ist Wundes hier geschehen? Dass ein Magd ein Kind gebar, ihre über aller Engel Schar. Was das nicht ein Wunder gab. Hier ließ sich reine taufen, dass der Mensch.
This is The New Right, a podcast for the lost arts, reclaiming the literary holy land from the heathen. This is Dan Baltic.
And this is Matt Pegas.
And this is episode 43, I believe.
Yeah.
And we have a return guest here, Kevin Kautzman, playwright extraordinaire, one of our favorites, co-host of Art of Darkness, which is an incredible literary pod. I mean, we as New Right, as a literary pod, I feel we are very well positioned to speak about other pods, and it's great. Art of Darkness, they put in a ton of effort on delivering biographies of tragic artists and their kind of interesting and winding lives. So he does that. He's one of the founding members of Badmouth Theater Company, which is producing and recording on podcast and otherwise a lot of very interesting plays that are pushing the boundaries of the discourse, shall we say, and touching on hot button issues. So Kevin is really a man about town intellectually. And a man about Twitter. He's a personality on the Bird site. You may have run into his tweets, and we certainly have. That's how we came to know you. We found your tweets, and we're like, this guy seems cool. I think you were actually on Robert Stark's pod with Matt at some point in the past, and so you came on ours, and you're back here again, Kevin. Great to have you on.
Thank you for having me. The podcast party circuit that we identified on, and of course,
exactly.
You, Dan, were a fabulous guest on Art of Darkness recently, where we got dunced with.
Yes, we did
with our friend. What a good time that was. So, if you want to hear more of Dan, check out Art of Darkness at artofdarkpod.com. And our recent episode that we did, and of course you two did on the constellation of podcasting, right. on John Kennedy Toole and the great Confederacy of Dunces as well. So
that was one of our favorite pods. I draw a lot of inspiration from Dunces. I did when I wrote Nutcracker, and it's just like. For Art of Darkness, for that episode we did on John Kennedy Toole, I think I said before the episode, and I'm sure I said it during, that he is in my opinion, one of the tragic artists par excellence. Just like it would be hard to find a more heartbreaking story than Kennedy Toole's. And it was a pleasure to talk about him and to have a chance to.
We talked about our pod, but in many ways he's kind of a progenitor of the kind of authors that are sort of more Twitter bound nowadays, and that come on our pod or may listen to our pod. Just in terms of that kind of more socially isolated life. Well,
y'all have a killer's row of people. I've been following you. I've been listening when I'm able, and it's fun to see you build this thing and sustain this thing. I think I was a pretty early guest.
You were one of our earliest. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Maybe second or third guest. Maybe second guest. I don't remember.
Matt Lawrence was the first.
Matt Lawrence was the first. Kevin might have been the second. Might have been. I hope I'm not offending anyone if they were that. But very early in any case.
Well,
Yeah.
it's nice to see that you have staying power. You're
Oh
staying with
yeah.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, as I'm sure you are as well, you have your day job, and like, God, we just spend like, so much of our like free time doing podcasting,
Yeah.
but we love it, and that's why we, and then I'm sure that's why you and Brad do it too.
Nobody believes in the media anymore at
Yeah,
all. The goodwill that any goodwill that they had in and authority they had over hitherto consensus reality has completely been eroded, particularly coming
100%.
out of the COVID nonsense. And so there's no there anymore. And there in its stead, there is a gaping vacuum sucking all that is good and holy into it. And that's an enormous opportunity. So pods like yours, pods like, if I may, Art of Darkness,
Definitely.
Absolutely.
starting a theater company. As we were saying before we started recording, it really cannot get any worse. So just put yourself out there. Make stuff. Also, we live in this era now of really no excuses. Everybody's got a laptop. If you don't, you can get one. Anybody can get a microphone. All you want for really is an idea, and then the will or the energy to make it so. I mean, and of course,
Absolutely.
and you can't beat the algorithm, but who really cares? Make the thing that you want to see in the world. I mean, that's been the secret for Art of Darkness for us. We would continue to do this even if we didn't have an audience, and that's the magic spot. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things
Absolutely.
I like so much about Art of Darkness is like, so there's a lot of pods in our world which just get a lot of mileage out of just saying things that they don't say in the mainstream. And to an extent, I think, New Right does get a lot of mileage out of that. We're talking about the stuff that they won't talk about with people that they won't platform. And that's like, that is powerful. That is juice. But like your pod, like this is something that like historically this could have been a very, and it is a popular pod, but it could have been a very popular mainstream like establishment, like to have like a every 2 or 3 times a month a pod about a tragic artist that tells all about his life. It's the type of thing like that, I think the NPR listeners, even if they weren't so psyoped, they would be like, yeah, wow, to just sit down and you get to learn all about like Bukowski. You haven't done the Bukowski episode yet, but all about like John Kennedy Toole, any of them, Lovecraft,
Burroughs,
yeah, Burroughs. Yeah, it's something that you not only are entertained by, but you are educated and enlightened by.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go
No,
on.
go on.
Yeah. Oh, I was just going to say, I mean, it's a case of the medium is the message, though, too, because we've discovered our format over time, and it's not overproduced. We call them conversational profiles of dead artists, and some are more tragic than others. We don't call them biographies anymore because we were corrected by the great Carl Rollison, because we're not doing biography, we're doing profiles. Biography is the work that we lean on. For
Okay.
example, I'm getting ready to do the Great Beast 666, Aleister Crowley. Crowley. I'm retraining myself to say Crowley because apparently in a poem he rhymed his surname with unholy. So
Right.
it is Crowley. Of course, I want to say Mr. Crowley. I want to, yeah, So it's interesting. I am an Ozzy Osbourne respecter, so it's
Yeah.
difficult for me to change the pronunciation. But in any case, the biography we're leaning on is from this fellow Richard Kaczynski. No relation, I'm sure, to Uncle Ted. Although it's possible. Who knows? You start to notice some very, very strange things, and I think we can go down a bit of a Crowley rabbit hole here if we want. But I'm getting ready to do that, and the point is, we lean on these biographies. We are not biographers, the same way that the hardcore history fellow Dan Carlin doesn't call himself an historian.
A historian, true, yeah.
So it's sort of an interesting thing, but Yeah, that pod is something that should have existed before. But even if it had, it wouldn't have ended up sounding or being the way that ours is, which is not overproduced. We leave the
Yeah.
ums and the ahs and the warts and all in, and the episodes are now 3 hours long. You mentioned the Burroughs episode we did, which was the first episode. That was only an hour. And by the time we had arrived at doing Kubrick, we realized, oh, these can be 2.5, 3 hours long. Yeah.
No, our pods followed a similar trajectory. I think that our first episode on Mike Ma, Dan, was probably on Mike Ma's books. Was like I think it was only like an hour and 15, but it felt like such a massive, work to get that done and edited. And now we whip out like 3-hour ones. No problem.
Yeah.
Besides, I think it's a natural enough trajectory to go longer once you get further into it. But I mean, one thing I want to say about Art of Dark is I'd second something I think that you said, Dan, which is that one thing that's always stood out to me about Art of Darkness is the amount of research you guys do. I'd like to think that on New Right, we definitely we read the books, we put the work in, but I really can't think of any other pod. It's certainly not that's released as regularly of Art of Darkness, where it's evident that just so much reading and kind of scholarship went into it. There's a certain kind of, we all love, some of us like sort of Come Town-esque podcasts where it's super conversational. And I do think there's something to, leaving the ums and the ahs in, that's fine. But definitely Art of Dark, the one of the chief compliments I would always pay it is that, it is very intellectually serious and exhaustive in its subject matter.
We've reached a point now where when we do an episode, we endeavor to really give a comprehensive, unbiased profile of each artist we cover. And Brad has been angling, Brad, my co-host, who is also hitherto a previous guest on New Right.
That's right. Brad Kelly.
Brad Kelly, that's right. Yeah. The great Brad Kelly, the Terrafont author of House of Sleep, which we'll talk about later when we get into what we're doing for season 3. In any case, he's been angling, we need to do 2-3-part episodes, this and that, and I'm the engineer, I'm the producer, right? So there's part of me that's like, let's get it done in 3 hours, 3.5 hours. So, but I mean, this Crowley episode, I have never felt more outmatched by a subject, partly because I went through a period where I really read an awful lot of Crowley, and I tried to understand what he was doing, the sense of humor, his impact on popular culture, even his psychology. What was this guy? Very, very strange, very mysterious. There's no life that we've covered so far, having done, maybe 25 to 30 core episodes now. We've covered 25 to 30 subjects, and then we do other types of episodes. But the meat and potatoes of Art of Darkness is these profiles. Nobody we've covered so far equally has been so well documented. So much ink has been spilled about Aleister Crowley, but also so much misinformation and nonsense. So it's really hard to parse what's true, what's false. I mean, the man wrote a thing called the Book of Lies. That was his
book, right?
I think it might have been, it might have been one of his first books of. His first stuff was poetry. And of course, in his Confessions, he immediately compares himself to Shakespeare, noting that they were both born in the same county. And what an amazing thing that one county would produce two of England's 2 greatest poets. We don't
know that Shakespeare wrote those.
Right, we're going to get to it.
Been very much in the news these days. But not to cut you off. Sorry, Kevin.
No, not at all. In any case, covering him, I just today, because we're going to have the great Stephanie Leahy come on. She's a medievalist who has some interest and standing in terms of medieval magic and medieval grimoires and what it all kind of really means, coming into the more modern Crowley magic with a K. So she's going to join us and help us try to cover the subject. But just today, while I was doing my reading and I've got these books, I reached a point today where I said, I'm just going to do the best I can to contribute to a meaningful, fairly comprehensive pod, but there's absolutely zero way I'm going to be able to get the whole of like what Crowley was and every beat of his life across. It would take a podcast of its own. So yeah, we do our best. We do our best.
It reminds me of, you mentioned earlier, Dan Carlin, and that is actually the metaphor I was reaching for. You guys are like the hardcore history of artists. And you do these like deep dives the same way Carlin does a deep dive on World War One. You guys do like a deep dive on Crowley, or a deep dive on Lovecraft, or a deep dive on Tool.
Well,
and like
to throw out another one that I really like, but go on. Sorry.
Yeah, or Younger. Our fans would like Ernst Younger, so that's another one that you should listen to. And so it's like, it's just like an incredibly detailed. Like Matt and I, we like, yes, we do the reading. Rarely, if ever, is it a novel that we have to read before. Sometimes it's a novel, but like it's never two books. Well, I don't think we've ever had like a single episode where we had to read two books. So like you guys are reading like 3 or 4 books more for each episode. This is crazy.
I mean, a lot of it is reference material. I mean, I have a degree in history, so I am able to kind of BS my way through, to a certain point. In any case, that's very flat. That's very nice. Can I for the New Right listeners and for the Art of Darkness listeners who are going to come over here, because we're going to, if you're willing, we're going to use this podcast. Can I announce our season 3?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. At the risk of being a little OCD, I'm going to go down all of it. And of course you can find this at artofdarkpod.com. And I want to also say we're going to launch a readers club for season 3 for our, you got to let me shill a little bit, for Patreon subscribers of Art of Darkness. Everybody gets an extra 30-45 minutes after every episode. And now we're going to do this book club. The book club is going to include, and it occurs to me, Matt, we should at some point we should do Dragon Day as well. But we are going to include Nutcranker in the book club.
Join this book club. It's going to be great.
So very excited about that. And so let me just go down who we're going to do. So we're through the end of the year. We've got Crowley, Anais Nin, Timmy Leary. We're going to be doing Emil Kieran, who I don't even know who that is. Then we're going to do Gilda Radner. So that's the rest of the year. Now, season 3, which is when we're going to do the book club, here's who we have planned. I'm going to do an episode on Victor Grun, who is do you know who Victor Grun was?
No, I actually don't.
He's the architect. He was a Viennese, Austrian, Jewish socialist architect who is credited with inventing the mall here in Minnesota. And he lived to see his work totally perverted. He died horrified at what he had unleashed in the world, because he wanted the mall to be like a suburban community center. He had this whole vision that these malls would be connected by public transportation, and it would be, and he lived to see his vision totally perverted by capitalism. So that's going to be a fun pod to do. So I'm just going to try to mention this. Oh, it's going to be great. Victor Grun, Joseph Conrad. We're going to do the book club. The first book club is going to be Heart of Darkness. We're going to do Hemingway with the great Aaron Gwynn, our friend Aaron Gwynn. Yeah. And I have some standing on Hemingway. I wrote a play about Hemingway for History Theater in Minnesota here. People don't know that Hemingway had 2 rounds of electroshock therapy at the end of his life at Mayo Clinic.
I heard something about that, but yeah.
Yeah. So we're finally going to do Hemingway. Brad's going to do Maya Deren. We're going to do David Foster Wallace.
Oh, can't wait. Yeah.
Big Air. We call that Big Air. Yeah. And if either of you are moved by any of these, of course, you all are welcome to come on for a Darkroom episode after the fact, but we'll talk about it. We're going to do, for the book club, we're going to do Nutcranker.
Thank you, Kevin.
It's going to be so much fun. I can't wait. Marilyn Monroe. All right. I got to do Monroe. Brad's going to do Borges with Aldous Asterian. We're going to do Borges for the book club, Ficciones. Then we're
Nice.
I'm gonna do Lenny Riefenstahl because we gotta get we gotta do Lenny. Yeah, that's gonna be good. Brad's gonna do Tarkovsky. We're gonna do
All right.
Gwyn's All God's Children for the book club. I'm gonna do Frida Kahlo. Brad's gonna do Emily Dickinson. We're gonna do the complete poems of Dickinson for the book club.
Nice.
Then it's Bukowski. Brad's gonna do John Milton. I'm gonna do Dante. Brad's gonna do Castaneda. We're gonna do Brad's book for the book club. I'm gonna do Samuel Beckett. Brad's gonna do Mishima. So we're finally gonna get Mishima in there. Yeah, which we're getting requests. So we're trying to listen to. Yeah, I can't wait because I don't know a thing about Mishima. Almost done. We're gonna do Confessions of a Mask for the book club.
Great.
I'm gonna do Hesse. I'm going to do Mary Shelley. Yeah, I can't wait to do Hesse. Mary Shelley. Brad's going to do Poe, James Hampton. I'm going to do Georgia O'Keeffe and John Lennon. Brad's going to do Nina Simone. And then I think we're going to read Blood Meridian for the book club. And that's what we're doing next.
That's like an entire college education of people. But that's remarkable. I mean, just out of curiosity, how long of a period of time does season 3 stretch? I mean, that must be like
that's the whole year.
That's
good.
Yeah.
Because I was gonna say try to cram that into 6 months, boy. But no, that's amazing, and thank you. I'm glad that we can host that announcement, and people should.
Everyone should tune in, listen, join the book club. And thank these men for the time they spend away from their families to produce this podcast.
One comment I would have, and I'm curious if this is even entirely accurate, but it seems like there's even a more of a boldness now in going into season 3 to kind of reach a little further back into the past with episodes on someone like Milton. Is that? I mean, I guess that's more of a comment than a question, but a lot of your original topics, or maybe almost all of them, are kind of very 20th century, and now with that, and sometimes that stuff's the most sort of topical or accessible, but obviously someone like John Milton, then you're really doing historical scholarship to dig into him and what was going on at that time. But nevertheless, it really fits that same bill of a lot of other Art of Darkness topics, where it's someone who was responding to his surroundings, which were chaotic, and made it through art that was often very dark, although also, in Milton's case, Christian in its way. And again, these are more comments than questions, but it is cool to see you guys start to reach back further into the past.
Well, Brad really broke new ground in terms of the pod and the style of the pod with the Bosch episode, because we don't really know that much about Hieronymus Bosch. So his angle was to take the famous painting, The Garden of Earthly Delights, and he walked you, or you can go listen to it at any point. You can go get Boshed. Just like you got Dunst.
Exactly.
We need to make more artist names need to be verbs. That's how we're going to save Western civilization, is to verb the name. But in any case, he walks you through the painting, and so you'll see the painting in a new light. But he walks you through the scholarship about the painting with touches into the biography, because again, we don't know that much about Bosch. That episode was a real. He really did a number there, because it's not like a straight profile, because you really can't do it. So he broke new ground there. I don't know what kind of documentation there is in terms of Milton's life, but
Probably
we'll find a way to make
Bosch, but still, it's my only point is, like, it's not, it's very much like scholarly articles at that point, more so than
But like a pot, like covering Maryland is very different from covering Milton.
You're right. Yeah. That's ambitious, and I think it'll be an ambition that'll be rewarded by stellar content. So we look forward to it.
Absolutely. Yeah, one that our side I know would definitely love is there going to be a Nietzsche episode?
I need to do Nietzsche at some point. I have a degree in philosophy. What good it's done me. Whatever that means.
Because like if ever there were a literary philosopher, I mean, like Zarathustra, that is literature, really. And as far as tragic lives go, like, ooh, my man, he's got a tragic one. and the sister and everything, his connection, for better or worse, to 20th century history. It's a real.
Well, I was thinking today that Kanye West is the American Ubermensch. There's no way that Nietzsche could have predicted that the Amerikaner, the American Ubermensch, would look like a dude from Chicago who, what does he do? He writes poetry, and he's very concerned with fashion. And he's also an egomaniac, weaponized, unironic egomania. Kanye West is the American Ubermensch.
Well, are you going to do? Well, no, you only do people who have passed away.
Right. They have to have been dead a year and a day. We're getting. I don't know if this is in the calendar, but we are getting ready to do Norm Macdonald as well.
Oh, nice. So, that's a good one.
Yeah. I don't know why I didn't pick that up in my calendar, but
that'll be good.
Yeah. That's going to be great. Yeah.
No, but obviously, so Kanye is not going to be an Art of Darkness episode on Kanye West anytime soon, God willing. But
well, we don't know. I mean, Kanye has to avoid small, private aviation and hot tubs for a while.
But I mean, if any of our listeners haven't already picked up on this, I would say Kanye is definitely the type of artist that you guys cover. Someone who's both extremely, very successful and influential, but also with all of these demons and just different angles through which to approach his life.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, right. I mean, and sort of the thesis of our show too is that if we throw out any artist who's problematic, there's no culture.
Right.
It's just gone. It's deeply anti-human to hold everybody to an impossible standard. Now, that's not to say we need to excuse repeated, recurring bad or criminal behavior, but we also need to recognize the culture that we're awash in and the double standards that people are
absolutely
held to. You can go into Barnes and Noble and pick up a book by Ginsberg, who was a pedophile apologist, or Burroughs, who
shot
and killed his wife.
Yes.
Right, but there are currently
also a apologist.
Right, of course, and Burroughs was a pederast, but because I guess he remains quasi-fashionable, you can still go get his books at Barnes and Noble. Who gets to make that call, I guess? And one thing about our show too is that none of this is prescriptive. Like, we're not covering Crowley because we're Thelemites or that we want you to go and practice sex magic, although my DMs are open. Just slide on in there. But the thing about Crowley is even if you're some ortho bro, neo-reactionary, you need to understand this dude. If you don't want to be an NPC, if you want to understand the current pop culture and the world it's Crowley's world, we just live in it. That's one of the cases that I'll be making.
Interesting. No, I'm really excited to listen to that one because I really don't know that much about Crowley. And if he indeed has had an outsized influence on the current year, the modern era, I will be educated by this.
Yeah, no, I'm also extremely excited for it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. He's just such an interesting character. And I also know you all have, so we have an Art of Darkness Telegram chat. The link is on our website. If you go to artofdarkpod.com, you can get in there. We got, 30, 40 people in there. We're growing it like everything else. Our friend Astral, friend of the show, we've had him on. Yeah. Astral sometimes hosts Brad and I, and we're getting ready. This is kind of like book club adjacent, because now that we have like a little audience and we have like a platform or whatever, we want to kind of do new cool things with it, which is where the book club idea comes from. It's like, well, let's just do this. But we're getting ready to go on Astral's pod to talk about Fight Club. So
nice. Yeah.
So look out for that too. That's going to be a lot of fun. I had to shout that out because I was in the chat earlier today and I'm like, hey, I'm going on New Right. You want me to mention anything? And Astral's like, I'm shameless. Mention me. You got to listen.
Astral and I were just on Astral's pod and he mentioned the Fight Club thing. So, it all
nice.
connects.
Sweet.
And you, by the way, you and Brad did a very good episode with Astral on his pod. I guess this is your return episode, but your original episode was very good too.
Yeah, I overslept. I've got young children. But I made it. I made an entrance. I finally made it. Yeah. That guy, he's so intense and brilliant, and just really an asset to this side of Twitter and I guess the discourse, mud discourse. Very interesting fellow. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, very very supportive. Always like wants to help people, and yes, very like insightful, and it's got like a lot of intellectual firepower in his engine there.
Definitely.
He's unapologetically passionate. If you get Astral wound up about something, he doesn't pull any punches, and I love that. We need more of that. This stoic, just get on with it kind of attitude. It's like, no, we're a lot of us we're artists. We're supposed to be out there. We're supposed, there's been a war on extroverts for a few years. And it's time for the extrovert, for the guy who says, who goes past the joke and says too much and talks too much and maybe drinks too much, or, it's time for too much.
Yeah.
we need to, we need to bring it back a little bit. Yeah.
And time for sincerity, I think. Time for like there's so much, the culture is steeped in irony, and that's great. That's like, but things are kind of starting to matter again. So at a certain point, when politics, kind of necessitates a more honest and non-ironic response, you need people who are up to that challenge, who are ready to actually say, like, yes, this is what I believe. This is
what do you think about
behind
this idea that when both sidism is kind of the order of the day, where you just shrug your shoulders and go, well, it's all power and they kind of run things, and irony seems to be the appropriate response to that. But as both sidism goes away, because now we see one side wants to lock you in your house and force an experimental medical intervention on you and your children in order to participate in civic life.
Your children.
Yeah. Particularly leave. Is this
you can say whatever. Yeah.
I say, leave the fucking kids alone.
Exactly. Yes.
I'll go on record and say this. That's if we don't draw the line there. I'm talking about college kids. I'm talking about little kids.
Just let them have their childhoods. Let them, let them become adults.
Particularly, I am talking about vaccines. I don't want to touch another third rail, but in this case, or experimental medical interventions, there's no both sides on this for me. So you can, you can call me whatever you want. Oh, well, in any case, this is a total non sequitur, but I've got my my safety propaganda shirt on that I'm wearing.
All right.
The great Adam Lehrer. I got to call him out too. I don't know if y'all have you had him on the pod yet?
No. Actually, I'm not familiar with it.
Ooh, you guys. Ooh, you should. He came on our toe episode. Talked Artaud with us. I might have to make an introduction.
That'd be great.
Great. Yeah,
he's a fabulous writer.
No, we love introductions. Obviously, there's a million people we could do episodes with, but it's always best when we kind of have that more, the connectivity with another guest. So yeah, I would love to hear it. But he does like screen printing and stuff.
Yeah, well, he's got a whole brand, safety. I hate that word, but he's got a whole cultural thing going on. But he's an author. He has a book called Communions. Yeah.
It sounds like Stained Haynes has some competition there. He's another, I don't know if you're familiar with Haynes, but he does like a whole in New York City, a whole like apparel line of like safety propaganda type stuff with like one of our favorite t-shirts is No Riding with Despair, and it shows like a stick figure on the subway with his head in his hands but with a big X over him, and it says like keep hopes up.
Yeah, no blackpilling.
Exactly. No blackpilling.
That's right. I'm gonna reach out to Lehrer now too. I do love that, they forced us into our homes. They made everybody become very online. If you weren't already very online, now you kind of have to be. I did feel vibe shift when that started, where people realized, wait, we're in this for the long haul, the long haul.
It is the long haul.
Escape. Yeah, right. Calling Dr. Freud. People started to explicitly reach out and start to make connections. And this is really one of the great things about the podcast party circuit, whatever you want to call it. These connections are real, where you're really meeting real people. I feel like when I start to travel again after crypto moons, and I'm a man of independent means, like Crowley was at 18. At 18, by the way, Aleister Crowley at 18 inherited the equivalent of $2 million today.
Yeah.
And like,
explains a lot, actually, right?
Doesn't it? It's really easy to believe in like sex magic and the fact that, like, wanking or buggery will allow you to manipulate reality when you already are sitting on a small fortune. Like, of course.
Totally.
Yeah. It's like, oh yeah, well, look, the entire world bends to my will. It's like, well, you're an Englishman of means, Alistair.
The wanking was incidental.
Right.
The wanking is just something that you do.
Correlation is not causation, Alistair.
I'm very powerful because I jacked off today.
That's right. I mean, and I don't mean, this is one of the things about our pod too, is that we do try to have fun. We try not to be way too serious.
Oh yeah, that's another thing I really appreciate about it, because there's always that risk with quote unquote right wing podcast scene where things are going to evolve. Purity spiraling. Art of Dark does not. You guys have fun with it, with the darker and sometimes lurid topics.
Yeah, it should be fun. We're not comedians, and I'm never going to do stand-up, thank God. The world doesn't need that. But, like, I write comic plays. My plays are humorous plays. I wrote, like, an internet sex comedy over 10 years ago called If You Start a Fire, Be Prepared to Burn, which is, it's published by Broadway Play Publishing.
So I gotta read that. I mean,
check it out. It's a comedy about a young couple during the recession who turned to cam modeling, who turned to OnlyFans before OnlyFans was OnlyFans, and it all goes pear-shaped. Of course, it's a sex.
It sounds like you're even subtweeting someone there. I think we all know.
Or I guess in this case, prophesizing.
Or not subtweet. You prophesize.
I'm not going to say who I was subtweeting when I wrote that, because it was a subtweet.
I know.
But it was a metaphorical subtweet. The person I was subtweeting with this play did not turn to online sex, but I did watch them go from being an idealist in college to confronting the real world, and watching them abruptly change from idealistic to sort of cynical made me go, I'm going to write a play about this. And I did want to mention one more thing that a fellow in our chat asked me to mention when I came on. And it's not a non sequitur at all. He wanted me to, and this is Domingo in our Telegram channel, he wanted me to ask about what he calls, and I'd never heard this term before, laser drama. Have you heard this? Closet drama?
No.
It's a type of play that is written not to be performed, but to be read. And he was asking, like, why are scripts, including screenplays, not being read today for their literary merit? And I'll just volunteer one more thing. Eugene O'Neill, the great American playwright, the only American playwright to win the Nobel Prize. Another example of the Herbernian dominance of arts and entertainment. Eugene O'Neill. But in any case, he wrote those three great plays. The most famous of which is Long Day's Journey into Night. To be read.
Really? I didn't know that.
That sounds vaguely familiar.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it and maybe this dovetails into that topic y'all wanted to talk about, the IM 1776 article, just about, I guess we'll call it, dissident artists, people who don't go along with the current regime, if you will, leveraging drama and the dramatic form and sort of taking it back from this astroturfed the astroturfed wokesters. Yeah. So in any case, I don't know. I love reading scripts. I love getting a play and reading it. I like doing little radio plays too. You can find, we did 4 of them this last year at Badmouth Theater Company, badmouthtc.com. They're all there under the podcast. You can go listen to them. They're 4 plays, put them in your ears. Doesn't cost you anything. Just go there. We're making it to make it. But it does. I love the theater as a nice, tidy, political art form that you can do that doesn't cost very much. All you need is a space and some bodies. And if you're the kind of person too, there's one of the things I love about the theater too, is that you can be an impresario. You could be a producer. And that in itself is a work of art. If you don't, everybody doesn't have to be a playwright. Like, how awful is that? We don't want that. Everybody doesn't have to be an actor. You could be involved in the theater just by being a ringleader. If you have a good idea, well, there you go.
Absolutely.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Like, with regard to reading screenplays and plays, like, I enjoy that, sure. And I have read a lot of plays in my day, somewhat connected to my work, but otherwise, just in general for fun. But plays are meant to be performed on stage generally, and that's where we see them and do them, and it brings people together. And that is like if you're looking to build a new community, you're looking to build a community of people who are like-minded or whatever, bringing them all together in meat space, as they say, that's no small thing. That's a big thing, in fact. And that's one of theater's, big advantages, I think.
Build a community of people who are like-minded, but also open-minded. Stop preaching to the choir. This is one of the things that the American theater suffers from. This assumption that everybody's a tote bag carrying NPRite who is ashamed if they weren't voting for Bernie. Like, or like if they're left of Bernie Sanders is the assumption. And it's just like, it's so tedious.
So effete, and like, it's like with the assumed theater audience is not only liberal, but like basically wealthy too, almost. You know what I mean? It's like
elderly.
It's a very
women.
We see
gays.
this, definitely women or spiritual women. And we see this, honestly, with literature in general. There's a kind of NPR listener aesthetic that a lot of books, we've talked and tweeted and joked about this, that all the books seem to be marketed towards. But no, like there is a bigger audience for literature and a bigger audience for theater out there, which is where I think pods like ours and Art of Dark and your theater work, Kevin, can really, make a lot of headway.
If you're in a second or third tier city in the United States, right? You're not in LA, you're not in New York. And even if you are, we all know that LA and New York are actually just an amalgamation of a bunch of different neighborhoods and cities, right? So you can start your thing. All you need is, if you get 100 devoted people to be your audience for a thing live, you're golden.
Yeah.
You don't have to end up being the Guthrie or being the woolly mammoth, who even wants that? I mean, who even, forget about those places. God love them. But I mean, just forget about it. Just start your own thing. That is one of the benefits of the last crazy 15 years that we've had, that the institutions have become totally inaccessible to anybody who isn't a careerist climber within the regime.
Who hasn't been essentially groomed from the start for it.
Right. Yeah, groomed, and then knows it's like entering a Masonic lodge. You have your first we meet this or whatever. It's a kind of catechism, and it's ongoing. These people love nothing more than having to. Well, that's it, right? That's the current thing, shibboleth that has to continue happening. It's the Ukraine flag now. Notice how nobody's talking. Elon takes over Twitter. Nobody's talking about Ukraine. It happens overnight. Suddenly, it'll come back. But it's just like, well, in any case, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You have to
Yeah,
constantly relearn what shibboleth. It's exhausting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Who has
the
time
old
for it?
ones
Yeah.
unfortunately don't entirely go away. Like it was what it was like BLM, then COVID, then probably something else, then
It was Me Too at a
Me
certain point.
Too. Like,
Yeah.
and the thing is, like, it'd be one thing if, like, look, it's all terrible, but it'd be one thing if we're on Ukraine and it's like, okay, we can forget about that stuff now. That was fake. We know it was fake, but no, it's still like, well, that was still important. That was still not. I don't want to send us on a sidetrack there, but
Yeah, but at a certain point, there aren't enough emojis in the world to signal your allegiance to power. At a certain point, and I think a lot of guys our age, gals our age, millennials have just reached a point where they're just forcing us to make our own thing, and great and good.
Yeah,
I love
no,
that.
it's like,
let's do it. Yeah,
this is like what we're watching, instead of like watching this TV on the weekend. We're like making TV on the weekend, which is cooler, really.
Yeah.
It's like you're using your brain, and that's great. Like, and there's so few stuff, there's so little that's actually like any good to watch. Like, I will say, maybe Matt and I have talked about this show a bit, and I have been watching it. Maybe I'll catch some shit for it, but I've been watching Euphoria, and
Oh yeah.
it's not terrible. Like, it is
Right.
woke. Obviously, it is produced by the liberal, media, but like it does have a kind of incisive what I would take on, the current year in some respects. But there's like very little out there that like actually is intelligent, that actually is like worth watching, because like so much of it is just kind of like regime propaganda, really, and it's just boring to watch.
Oh, right. It's boring because you know what they're going to say. Even if you agreed with it, you would have to think this at a certain point. It's just boring,
Yeah.
and I think that's going to be their downfall. It was boring 15 years ago when it really kicked off. About 10, 12. I was in grad school when it really started to pop off. I was right on the edge of the old regime being hijacked by the new. I saw it happen in real time. I lived in England for a year in 2006, 2007, came back to Minnesota, got a fellowship at the Playwrights Center in Minneapolis, ended up getting a fellowship at the Michener Center at Texas. And at that point, it was already in full swing in the liberal arts and the theater departments. So it's been sort of a weird trip to have lived through that, and then to see it in about the mid-aughts, to see it go mainstream. And this stuff really is incubated at the universities and at the culture institutions. And for a few years, it was just totally shocking, because you go, well, this is not what I was raised to like. I was not raised in the 80s and the 90s to think that it was the left that censors people.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
It probably wasn't at a certain point, but it is now. I mean, the trajectory has been interesting, because I feel like when it started, it was a lot of like anti-patriarchy, anti-whiteness. And now it's for the last, and it still is that, but now for the last five, it started with what you're not supposed to say or not supposed to support. And now, as we kind of alluded to earlier, it's not only what you're not supposed to be, but also you have to, even if you are, the Black queer creator, you also have to sign on all kinds of other shibboleths about Ukraine or whatever the case might be. So
you have to have the word activist in bio.
Yeah.
And I saw that happen, and the hypocrisy of this, the silliness of it all, as like a white, straight white working class dude from the Midwest, from North Dakota, to watch these boarding school kids and these Yale kids. Nothing against you. I do appreciate you all deigning to talk to me, because I'm such a state school piece of trash. What's the line from your book?
A highly esteemed liberal arts.
Yes, I
university.
did not go to well, I sort of did. Like, Texas is like a public eye. Come on, Cope.
Yeah. Well, Texas and Austin, that's pretty good.
Hey, University, hey, Minnesota Twins, hey, we do all right. But as long as you just don't get shot on your way to campus.
Yeah.
The no joke, the bar and restaurant that I worked at on campus has since, it was converted to something else, and it was literally, there was like got shot up, like it was just like, oh my god, this is
Awful.
Dinkytown is not the way it used to be. Yeah,
I had no idea until the Floyd stuff that Minneapolis. I thought like Minneapolis. Well, that's just like white,
oh
people of
yeah, you
German
betcha.
descent up
Oh
there.
yeah, no, it's
And now I'm
Scandinavians.
like, hey, wait a
yeah.
minute. This looks a lot different than the demographics I had imagined.
The Germans and the Irish are over here in St. Paul, which is why I'm German Irish. Yeah, it's the Scandinavians, old money Scandinavians are the ones in Minneapolis who have their weird socialist ideas. They sort of seem to operate under this idea that they can make the Twin Cities into like a little Stockholm, and
sure.
It doesn't really work in reality.
Yeah.
If all they had were Scandinavians, perhaps.
Well, but but they've got to deal with, they got a lot of Irish over here in St. Paul. They got a lot of Germans over here in St. Paul. We create a lot of problems. We're very loud at parties. We're Catholics, a lot of us. It creates a lot of trouble. Oh, here come the Catholics again. But one thing to know about the Twin Cities too is that there is a long, deep history of the mob up here and mob violence. You could go down a rabbit hole just of that. St. Paul used to be called Crookshaven because the crooked police, who were Irish, again, the Hibernian menace, would allow felons to come into St. Paul, and they would be unmolested if they left the squares alone and didn't do any dirt in St. Paul. In the 20s or the 30s, I can't remember exactly when, but around that period, 1 out of every 5 bank robberies in the United States happened in Minnesota.
Oh, wow.
And the mob over in Minneapolis was Jewish. So you have rival mobs. The main mobster over in Minneapolis, the big dog over there, was tied up with Lansky. So you've got all of this subterranean. People think that like Fargo is so quirky and weird because, it's not really. It's like, no, it 100% totally is. We're not that far from Chicago. We're kind of in the Chicago vortex in terms of all of that business. It's its own little weird world. It's a city on the edge of the frontier. If you look at the map, like a light map of the United States, it falls off between here and like Denver. There's, in any case, we were talking about the wokesters in college. I don't know. I could go on and on about it, but it was very, very strange to be a guy from the middle of nowhere in North Dakota, and then to watch these people. It was like joining a chess game that was already in the end game. I felt the same way in England, but at least over there they gave me the benefit of the doubt because I was sort of a stranger in a strange land and a bit novel. Over here, it's just assumed, well, of course I should know all of these rules and all these. Like, I don't know what are you talking about? Like, they're playing a game. And so you can either just kind of like try to learn the game and hang, but it's so funny too, because you see this happen on Twitter constantly where somebody will like try to virtue signal, but it'll never be enough. You'll never satisfy them because it's always, the goalposts are always moving. So. Yeah.
I mean, that's how it's a language that they teach the upper class as a way of gatekeeping. And like, of course, you're never going to really master it the same way you're never going to really like master, any sort of language, I suppose. Like there's always
it's a dialect.
There's always room to improve. There's always, because otherwise, I think, well, no, I wouldn't sign up for my certification or whatever, but I'm sure many people would, and they'd be like, okay, I have my stamp, I'm good to go, I'm, whatever. And you'd be certified. You'd be a certified, good guy.
Its power is that it's all sort of happening subconsciously and naturally. And they have this just elan about it, this easiness, the same way that they'll never be able to hang out at like a Midwestern bowling alley unironically the way that I could. It's culture. It's culture and it's class. And of course, Americans are class blind by design. And so these discussions already reek of like, there's something uncouth about this. We're not supposed to be saying these things, are we? for some reason. and that's how
Right.
you know, yeah, it's like, well, let's say these things.
I think in some ways
Absolutely.
this is reiterating what we were already saying here, but I've heard, I don't remember, maybe Peter Turchin himself has commented on this. I don't really have like a textual citation. It's more just a conversation I've kind of found myself coming back to on different podcasts and just with people. But I've heard basically plausible theory that a lot of what's behind, you could talk a lot about what's behind wokeness, quote unquote, but a lot of what's behind the way that we talk about it and the way that the language policing and content policing is done. Basically, I've heard plausible theories that this is all has to do with elite overproduction, that concept from Peter Turchin and others. That there's so many people with college education, who think that, and in other eras they would, that would warrant them a certain place of cultural prestige and within the upper middle class. There's so many people like that within the millennial generation that, again, as you said, unconsciously or subconsciously, it's not like there's some grand design, but just very naturally people fall into an order of hierarchy, which in this case has to do with a certain sort of, almost, I won't use the word Gnostic because that's a little much, but a certain spiritualism surround, like a spiritual liberalism or spiritual leftism about how much you can sort of renounce and praise egalitarianism, and we all know get what that looks like, but
yes, absolutely. Yeah, and it's this funny, it's simultaneously like, and this is a bit of a high-minded, this might be a bit of a wank, but it's like they're simultaneously affirming and denying the Horatio Alger myth. They can't, it's like they want to have it both ways somehow. Like in America, you can create yourself, but you better do it by our rules. Does that make sense?
That does make sense. I'm actually not familiar with the Horatio Alger myth, but the way you,
well, it's the Horatio Alger myth is just pull yourself up by your bootstraps. They were these books that were written in, I think, around the, you in America, you can make it, son. You just have to, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. And didn't you know that Warren Buffett started out gathering golf balls, at the golf club to make quarters and to make, it's like, never mind that his father or his grandfather was a senator. No, he pulled himself up. That Horatio Alger myth. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think in lieu of a more codified culture, in lieu of an aristocracy, basically, people resort to, as a right winger, I guess, or a man of the right, like I do believe there's a natural tendency towards aristocracy, but when you don't have that codified within culture, people get up to all kinds of weird tricks in order to establish that. And right now, that has to do with wokeism and virtue signaling and how far you can go with it.
Yeah,
you're very right, and it's very linguistic, all of it, isn't it? Where the word cells seem to have taken over. That's one of the reasons they resent someone like Elon so much.
Trump,
because
even,
right, builders or engineers, they
or
make
people
stuff.
who just
also
Trump
is better at them at their own game. Trump is the ultimate word cell. He is, so he's a genius in in his speech, in his in his comic delivery, in his
funnier.
He's funnier. He's he's a, whatever you think of him, like he is he's a great politician. He's a mesmerizing speaker.
He was the entertainer in chief.
Yeah. And they hate him for the fact that he they loved to talk about how dumb he was, how, uncouth he is, because the truth is he connected with people better than any of them could. He connected with black men. And when was the last Republican who connected with black men? You gotta look pretty far back. He connected with white working class men. The only people he didn't connect with,
Lincoln.
Yeah. The only people he didn't connect with were these woke women and these these spiritual women, as Matt would call them.
I do love this idea of spiritualism, because there is a strain of that running through the American subconscious that's very real. And don't say the forbidden words. Don't don't have the conversations because it's almost like you're raising spirits somehow. There's like a ghost of the lurking at the edge of the discourse. And if you say that, it's this kind of like panopticon set of self-censoring gears that we all know we have in our heads, but you can never quite name it or place it. Yeah, they don't need to censor us outright if we're already doing it ourselves, because we know if we don't, our families will starve because we'll get.
Well, no,
it's
absolutely true. I think most cultures have that. Like in Islamic cultures, you can't say certain things about the prophet, and or much of anything about the prophet. And here, like that, like we you can't say so.
Wait,
in fact,
stop.
Well, exactly. We're talking around things right now to avoid the fate that you describe. So
this is why we have to protect the Anons at all costs. We really do. I'm a face cuck.
True. I mean, that's true. Me and Matt, we have a lot less skin in the game in that regard with our.
I am just waiting for Trump to come back to Twitter, and all I want, just because I want to know that he's following the discourse on this very weird corner of Twitter. I just want him to tweet "Namaste" when he returns.
That would be great. Yeah. No, what is that? A Rahul Ligma character? I don't know if you've seen.
Yes, yeah. Ligma and Johnson outside of Twitter. And did you see this, Matt?
No, I saw the Ligma Johnson thing like minutes before hopping on this. What is it has to do with the people getting kicked off Twitter. Am I short on my memes here? Am I behind?
So you could correct me if I don't have the full story here, Kevin, but I think it's just like a stunt with like some Indian guy and some white guy leaving Twitter with their stuff, like they got fired, and the guy's name is Rahul Ligma, and like he's a totally made up guy.
The one dude's name is Rahul Ligma. The other guy's name was Johnson. So together they were Ligma Johnson, like Lick My Johnson.
Oh, right, they're Ligma Johnson.
Yeah.
So, wait, who orchestrated? I'm sorry.
They pretend. Okay, so these two dudes pretended to be engineers that Elon fired on day one of taking over Twitter, and they just lurked outside of Twitter headquarters in San Francisco or wherever, with boxes, and one of them had a Michelle Obama book in the box.
Saw that
and they bought it. These like the Daily Mail picked it up and ran it as a story, and it was just a bit of street theater and a bit of trolling.
Yeah, a bit of IRL trolling. That's interesting.
Yeah, it's street theater.
Yeah,
it's a combination of digital theater and street theater. It's a bit. Yeah, it's not like an entire drama, but it's theater.
Yeah. No, that's true. Yeah,
that's funny. In my scrolling, I of course saw those pictures, but I didn't actually watch the video or like hover long enough to realize that there was more going on, and this was actually a real story.
I want to rewind just a little bit and ask you, Matt, something, because this is a topic of discussion that I don't really have that many opinions on. It's not how I'm accustomed to thinking, because I'm not a WASP. And I don't know who is or who isn't. But you're talking about the American aristocracy and this new wokeism and the new regime. And Yarvin and company have pointed this out and talked about this. How much of it is the old WASP aristocracy renegotiating its standing in relation to a new, more multicultural elite?
I don't think much at all, because I don't think that the people engaging in it are disproportionately WASP. I haven't, there's I think probably someone like Yarvin would have a more pronounced opinion on that than me. But I mean, when you look at this gets into a whole other realm of topic, but when you look at the most vehemently woke people, in the culture, I don't think they're disproportionately WASP.
Well, I think what we need to do here is we need to break down what do we mean by WASP.
Well, white
sure. But like there are a lot of white Anglo-Saxon Protestants in America. So like white Anglo-Saxon Protestants from, I don't know, like rural Texas or whatever, Appalachia, they're not really WASPs in the sense that like, I think Kevin, I don't mean to put words in your mouth, but Kevin means wasps.
I mean the
I
the
think,
old
yeah,
northeastern
the old
establishment.
guard,
Yeah,
the kind of like
yeah.
the old families, the Mayflower families, the people who used to run America, the people who ran America until like the 60s. And like I think there is some truth in that like when the civil rights movement became more powerful and changes started happening, that the old guard saw this happening and they did renegotiate their standing. And so like generally like anyone who's in the upper class in America knows that they either they know that they need to be woke to some
Yeah,
extent or
I
to
think you're
some.
right.
And so
Well,
anyone who is like a New England WASP, they are from the upper class. And so they will either be woke, or they will be like maybe like you and me who understand what that is and are against it. But I think you're not going to have the situation with too many people who are in the like the WASP establishment, to the extent that's even a thing, who
I
are ignorant of this drama. They
I think
understand what's going
that's a
on.
great point. Exactly. They're educated to be immersed in it. They're educated to be a certain way. I think that's one of the reasons Tucker offends them so much and offends people so much, because he is that thing and he just simply says, no, no,
Yeah.
I'm not doing this. And also he acknowledges what he is in his background. He doesn't pretend to be an everyman.
Yeah, yeah.
He doesn't LARP that. So yeah, I don't exactly know where I'm going here, but it's just very curious
yeah,
to
no, I think to the extent that the WASP sort of renegotiated with the kind of in the post civil rights era in order to maintain a status within society. Yes, I think some WASPs maybe did that, but at the total expense of any kind of demographic self-preservation. Like
Well, exactly. Yeah.
they renegotiated at a certain point, but now so some of it is, we still, you'd have to talk to someone with more of the kind of sociological reading to talk about this as me, but a lot of people would say like, America still is a WASP country, and the fact that it was founded upon WASP and very, very Protestant and very English mores that are with us to this day. So in that sense, there is still that WASP element, but it's not at this point, it's not a demographic influence as much as a
I just pointed to Crowley, and Crowley really was that. I mean, Crowley was raised by these Plymouth Brethren, who were these insufferable evangelical, ultra evangelical Puritans in England. So his whole psychology was that he saw how miserable they were, and how he came to the conclusion that and he wrote and said himself, he did not hate Christ. He simply hated the Christ of the people who he hated. And he sounded to be so lifeless and dead. And I'm not saying that all evangelicals are this way, but I mean, it is very, very curious to think about America as the kind of the afterbirth of the afterbirth of the British Empire.
Yeah.
We're like if the British Empire was the face hugger in Alien, we're the queen in Aliens. We're the thing that, or we're the beast that comes from the beast in a funny way. And it's an interesting question to really ponder, and we're not going to get to the bottom of it, but how much did the British Empire really fall, or did just the elite power kind of merge with American imperial power and kind of wrap its tentacles around the world?
Again, not to go further down this spiral, though I do think it's an interesting one, but you have someone like Alexander Dugin, from a Russian, a very, very Russian perspective, often talks about the Atlanticists and talks about the West. It gets confusing because a lot of quote unquote alt-right people liked Dugin, who also would have said positive things about the West, quote unquote. But then, from like an ultra orthodox Russian perspective, he's against the West, and he does actually say things like that. It's English and even like racist in its origin, which leaves a lot of people puzzled, given to call the current like GAE racist, but it boils down to something like that, where it's regardless of the way that the current Western elites and establishment present themselves being so pro-diversity, it remains, again, in the kind of very, very intellectual waters here, but like in the kind of Dugan terms, the anthropology of it, the anthropological understanding is still so rooted in like English Protestantism that it's still this very, very English and
Totally
almost racist. And
well, I mean, what are we speaking? What language are we speaking? My ancestors didn't speak this language, until pretty recently, believe it or not. Certainly on my father's side, I mean, my grandfather and grandmother in that generation grew up speaking German in North Dakota. So it's just, you're awash in this operating system of the English language. So it just naturally comes with all sorts of baggage that you can't even notice it. And then the fact that most Americans are monolingual is pretty startling when you really think about what that implies. If you understand that the English language itself is an operating language of English Protestantism.
Absolutely.
Really,
well, that's fast. I haven't thought about that in a while, but I was a linguists minor for whatever that's worth in college, and I was obviously a very liberal, very kind of post-colonial milieu. So there was a lot of notions of language carries power, and being forced to speak a language, makes you adhere to a certain hegemony. Well, you know what? I don't think that's entirely untrue. Like, I'm not a leftist or a post-colonial theorist, but there is something to that, and that language does come with its set of presuppositions, perhaps, or just it is a vector of power. Yeah,
it is, and names are extraordinarily powerful. Crowley took on the magical name Protorabo. I will persevere. I persevere unto the end, which comes from Mark chapter 13, verse 13, about perseverance. And it's extraordinarily powerful. I mean, his system of quote unquote magic with a K really is just about hacking your own brain. And the way that you do that is with language. So yeah, this is a wild rabbit hole that we could go down. I'm going to put my tinfoil hat on because I really love folk culture, and conspiracy theories are our modern campfire stories.
Yes.
We're sitting around these digital lights, and these are the stories we tell one another. I touched on that with my play, and I know we wanted to talk about this briefly. This is another bit of my content that people can get at if they want. It's a play I wrote called Moderation. I wrote it a few years ago, so people who know me, know it by now. But if you've never, heard of me before, check this out. It's called Moderation, moderationplay.com. I wrote it a little bit ahead of, I was a little ahead of the curve, just like if you start a fire, because now content moderation is like front page news. It's the whole reason Elon is taking over, is to figure out how to manage the content and the discourse on Twitter. In any case, my play is a dark comedy about social media content moderators losing their minds at work. You can go find it at moderationplay.com. It's also on Spotify as like a kind of a radio play type thing. But one of the things about that play, one of the germs of that play, was that I read an article about how these content moderators were reading about conspiracy theories online and slowly beginning to believe them. Which to me was like, that's so perfect. They talk about like a moral hazard of a job. You're trying to do this thing and you kind of become the thing that you ostensibly set out to police. I just think there's such a wonderful, it's almost like a quality of The Godfather in it. It's just like, I try to get out, they pull me back in. But there was a thing going around on Twitter, and I cannot recall the account, but they pointed out that Rishi Sunak, the new prime minister of the UK, worked at Goldman, then went off to work at a smaller hedge fund, which, I shit you not, is called Thelema, which is the name of Crowley's religion.
Right.
Their spelling of it was THE tilde LE tilde ME, but it's Thelema, which literally means will in Greek, which alludes to Crowley's edict, do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. I looked up the meaning of Thelema with an E, and I found this: an abbey described by Rabelais in Gargantua as having only one rule: do what you like.
Yes.
And I'm not a total tinfoiler, but I love when you come across stuff like that on Twitter and you just go, is it really this weird? Is it really just full blown eyes wide shut? Yeah.
No. Well, you don't even necessarily have to say your opinion here, because maybe it's better saved for the actual Art of Dark Aleister Crowley episode. But I mean, that's to me one of the major questions reading about people like Crowley and reading about the OTO and various even Freemasons to an extent, and various esoteric organizations and people, is it, there's one of two interpretations, like, or there's many, of course, but two broad camps. Like, the question is, does this stuff affect the power structure of the world in a deep way, or does it not? I mean, either way, it's interesting to read about. But I sometimes am convinced, sort of, in either direction. Like, sometimes I think it's someone like Crowley is extraneous to the the power structure that be. It's like it's the result. Again, he got this $2 million. He came into $2 million. It's just someone with a wealthy person with a lot of time on their hands delving into topics, or is there that eyes wide shut deep structure to it? Maybe the answer is somewhere in between.
I think it's somewhere in between, but I think Crowley is somebody who really had his hands on the lever of some things, and I'm going to get at this on the pod. Certainly, he affected culture. He influenced so many people. So many rock and rollers are obsessed with him. I mean, look, he was initiated into the Golden Dawn at the Mark Mason's Hall, which is steps away from Buckingham Palace, steps away from Whitehall. It's right there in Westminster. It's at the heart of the world. It's right by Covent Garden. And these people were not, this wasn't costume acting. They took this stuff very, very seriously. We can kind of laugh at it. These were secret societies of men and women who, many of whom were engaged in alternative sexual practices at a time when that was blackmail
illegal. Yeah.
Heavy duty. You have to remember that Crowley, and I'll get into this on the Art of Darkness episode at artofdarkpod.com. But Crowley, his first homosexual lover was kind of the Oscar Wilde of Cambridge, shortly after Wilde had been Wilde at Oxford. And so they had seen what happened to Wilde, so they kept it on the DL. And a lot of this magic stuff is code. Almost all of his poetry, most of his poetry was code for prohibited sexual practices. And a great deal of the magical working is, these are descriptions of sex acts that would have been verboten.
Yeah.
Now, we should laugh at it. It is really hilarious. It's all really kind of silly. Like, wait, you're going this far to talk about buggering your friend from college? And the answer, of course, is yes. And we think again that, like, oh well, now everything's so liberated and everything. So it's like, well, yes and no. I mean, what the hell was going on Epstein's Island?
Right.
With that temple. Like, are we really? Yeah. So, Matt, I don't know the answer, but that's why it's a source of infinite fascination, because is there like a society of maybe 10,000 people that really do like kind of fundamentally rule the world? And are they like doing sex rituals to this day? That I want my invitation. I'm very frustrated. Sorry, Matt, go ahead.
No, you can continue, Ped, more to say. I tend to not to tie this up with a neat bow, because I think we'll never really know, and the mystery is part of what makes it intriguing. I tend to think it's not as simple as like a QAnon scenario where, like, really this is at the heart of things and it's terrible and like we need to uncover it and like return the world to pure. I tend to think like the whatever the secret societies that operate and that play with these rules and customs, I tend to think it's kind of just parallel to the powers that be. I don't think Joe Biden is doing any of this stuff. You know what I mean? I think there's a very boring, dry element to the powers behind things, and I think there's just some people within that who get up to shadier things. Which is, I mean, that in itself is kind of maybe a boring explanation, but I just think I wonder sometimes how much this stuff actually matters in for the real powers that be, and I think the answer is somewhere between that. It's everything and nothing at all. Yeah.
I would co-sign on that to the extent that people who have a great deal of power and influence in the liberal democratic West are largely insulated from consequences, and as a result can do what they want. And some of what they want to do is stuff like this.
Yeah, and then
so it's not so much that like they have to do that. Like this is part of like getting into the club. If you're in the club, you can do it.
Well, and
it just like it's kind of like you're allowed to let your id run free. Many of these people, and unfortunately, when people's ids run free, they go to dark places.
Yeah, and then just to cite the last element of any conspiracy theory worth its salt that delves into this stuff, the other element is blackmail and control, which would certainly be the case with maybe less obviously so with Crowley, but definitely with something like Epstein's Island. The whole point is you attract people with this kind of stuff, and then you have information, and you can control a Bill Clinton for the rest of his life. I don't really mean to completely co-sign on that idea, but that's like the type of idea, type of person who would be cited. Yeah.
Yeah. But I love that because it's like, what if, because growing up in America in the 80s and the 90s, into 9/11, into Afghanistan, into Iraq, pulling your hair out and thinking, none of this makes sense. Why are we sending boys, young men from Wyoming and the Dakotas and Nebraska to go die over there? None of it makes sense. It doesn't add up. Mm-hmm. For all the ink that spilled and all the PhDs and all the punditry and all the serious talk, like, what if it really comes down to the fact that there was an elaborate, multi-generational, spy-driven, 3-letter agency honeypot operation to compromise? Isn't in a way that more of an Occam's razor than trying to twist yourself into knots over the American foreign policy for the past 30 or 40 years? In a funny way, it almost is. Certainly it's a factor. So if you were getting your PhD on, or writing more series about Colin Powell, and this is why we gotta go to all of that stuff, we've got new information, man. New shit has come to light.
Yeah.
Like the Lebowski. It's like you literally, after the Epstein thing, you have to completely reverse engineer your understanding of what the hell may have just gone on. And I love that stuff. And yes. whether or not you co-sign and get into like what I'm saying, I love, because I'm able to do, like on our Ernst Junger episode, I have stereoscopic vision. That was Ernst Junger's thing. He saw both the symbolic reality and the scientific epistemic reality. I am able to talk about this and both see the symbolic folkloric value of what I'm talking about and the material. I'm just because I'm saying these things doesn't mean that I totally wholesale swallow it as the truth, but it's very, very interesting. And again, I'm kind of with you, Matt, that it's like, it's somewhere in between.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. No, agreed. I mean, one thing about the obvious honeypots, and like, I guess in retrospect, Epstein was an obvious honeypot, but even like during that era, that time, like I feel like you had to have been a fool to to put, obviously, like I wouldn't do that. Most people, I would hope most people would not do that, but if you were inclined to do that, wouldn't you think like, yeah, this guy has like, like an island, and you don't know who he is really, and he has all these shadowy ties. Why would you go? I don't, it doesn't make sense to me.
100%, especially after he was
Yeah. I mean,
Sound
like
guilty.
it's obvious. Like this is like this is a very compromised situation. Why would you be like, oh yeah, this guy who's like almost certainly some type of foreign intelligence agent? Yeah, I'm gonna.
Right.
It just
Well, but
it
what if
doesn't add up. Like no one's that
right, but
dumb.
but it does if they got Polaroids of you doing
Well, no,
shit
true.
in
Yeah,
Marina
if
Abramovich's apartment, then yes, yeah,
sure.
you go.
Once you're already in it, sure. But like
Right.
for people new entrants, like I would think like that honeypot is just like compromised. You like and like you I mean, I would think that a lot of these situations, like you if you have like the ability to sniff things out at all, which these people, supposedly have, they're like savvy, members of the elite, you'd be like, huh, no, that's I'm not gonna, go in this guy's, private videotape surveillance island.
It really doesn't add up, does it?
No, I mean
Not
I
quite, but
don't
hey, if they
know.
get you at a young enough age and a vulnerable enough state of mind, again, don't actually know that much about this, but if you watch something like Eyes Wide Shut, you see how it's veils behind veil, and it's just there's an element of trickery or perhaps entrapment. I don't know, but yeah, whatever
Well,
it is, it's
there's
you're going to be discombobulated throughout the entire process.
And just to be crystal clear, I don't judge them for it. I just resent the fact that I haven't been invited.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I think definitely is true, and I'm sure like, everyone can kind of co-sign on, is that when you are uh, aroused, shall we say, your reason
Mhm.
begins to falter considerably. And that is like a definite lever of, power to pull with, at least with men. If you
Mhm.
can turn someone on, you can turn off their brain.
Definitely.
This is a different class of person too, right? You're at a party, maybe you're got a little toot. You had a few. You're a powerful person. Now you've met Ghislaine or you've met somebody else. Hey, we're gonna go party on Jeff's Island. What are you doing this week? Like it's a different. This
Exactly.
is just normal. I dated a gal for a while in New York who is a Belgian gal who was a private flight attendant, and she told me stories periodically that again where they're just it's a completely different strata.
Oh
It's
yeah.
different
Yeah.
Yeah, I
rules,
mean
right?
it
Yeah.
starts with like kind of like Greek life esque things. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, we're all partying, we're all rich and in college. And I mean I'm not anti Greek life really, but like that's where it would some of these kinds of things would take root, is that mentality. And I think if you can make people think they're just partying or blowing off steam, in theory
Yeah.
that would be how these things would begin.
I
A
like it.
slippery
But anyway.
slope, as they say.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we live in a bait and switch society, don't we? Everything seems to be bait and switch these days, from Facebook to Twitter. Everything you think it's one thing, and then it's revealed slowly to be something else.
That's
Uh,
right.
isn't that strange? Again, it's like it's like entering a chess game that's already well underway, and you're down three pieces, and
Yeah.
it's very, very strange especially for the isolated, alienated individual. And that is where art and podcasts and creativity and community and theater and making your own thing can serve as an antidote
Absolutely.
and give you a little bit of power to feel less isolated and less, and you can be also, fellas, I don't know how old y'all are, but like we're the adults now. And I'm really I think millennials are slightly suffering. I know I am, from a bit of a Peter Pan problem, because the
Oh
boomers have
yeah.
held on to
No.
power it's like, no, this is it. You're in your prime. Somebody posted on Twitter yesterday a great tweet, and it's great because it makes you think, whether you agree with it or not, saying, 40 isn't middle age. 45 isn't middle age. Most people live to be about 70, 75. You're the only reason they tell you it's middle age is so that you'll be willing to work until you're 65 years old. And it's like, maybe there is something to it.
Yeah.
But my point is, there's nobody coming to rescue us. There's nobody coming. It's us.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And yeah, there is that sense. I've tweeted about it before that yeah, we all came onto the scene not even in media res, but toward the end of the game. At least in the West, I hate to blackpill, but yeah, it's the game is kind of like winding down, and yeah, you're like you were born at the end of the party, and make the best of it, and that's all any of us can do.
Well, right, and it's extraordinarily competitive, and so nobody will really give you the leg up that you need, really, unless some mentor, somebody, you really have to go and make yourself. You really have to go out of your way and hustle and put in the work and put in the time, because they won't even tell you that the party's over.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to tell you that, because they're perfectly happy if you remain an NPC and consume and stay in line, maybe have the 1.5 kids allotted to your social standing, take the trip to Orlando once in a while. Like, they're perfectly happy to just have you do that.
Well, the getting the leg up part, to me, that's not like financial, and I think that's probably not how you meant it either. So much as cultural, like it's I mean, it's not easy, but like you can, if you're sufficiently motivated, whatever, you can eke out a living. You can even make a decent living. But it's very hard in this age, this atomized age, to find a community. And so that kind of, at least for myself, I think maybe the both of you could co-sign on it, that doing these pods has like put us in touch with a community of people that it creates a certain amount of fulfillment in one's own life, and that is kind of like, that's like getting the leg up that we had to seize, that we had to take that chance and pursue that opportunity. And yeah, no one's going to show you how to do that. You just have to do it.
Indeed. Yeah, I think it's an interesting time, because we talk about it's the game of musical chairs and everybody's already sat down. So you can either decide to continue to kind of gripe about not having a seat, or you can just say, I'm going to go start my own game. There's
Absolutely.
a ton of power in being the guy that goes, okay, this game is a bit rigged. I'm going to go over here and try to do something new. People admire that too. You want to be, leaders start their own thing. They don't co-opt existing things necessarily, or if they do it grudgingly and in order to completely reform and reshape them. Part of the problem too is like being an American dude, where in our brains we've got astronauts and cowboys and even like Steve Jobs, and these, we've got these guys are kind of the machinery in the sky in our minds, and now we're being confronted by this like weird quasi-Soviet Leviathan that wants to eradicate that, and wants wearing a mask. John Wayne wouldn't wear a fucking mask. John Wayne's kids aren't getting lined up for shots every 3 months. What are you talking about? So you're gonna throw all that away and then wonder why we're devolving into violence, why there's no trust in society. Well, we don't have figures to look up to.
Yeah. No.
Well, to be to almost be a little bit more white pillar in the room here. I think we were talking about this before we started recording. People have really had it with that. I think that we talked about the cultural mores of wokeness as a dominating force, but I actually think that we're at least 1 year out of the peak of that, or maybe 2 years out of the peak of that. You know what I mean? We're moving away, like, collectively from that, to the point where I think that a silent majority, perhaps, of people don't take that seriously anymore, even if they are themselves liberal or leftist. I do think we're kind of in a post woke moment, in a way where people, I actually really, maybe I'm too optimistic, but I really think even very average people realize the degree to which this is all sort of corporate and orchestrated by powers that be. And we a lot of people don't exactly know what they want, and I'm not saying that the answer will be necessarily right wing or traditionalist in flavor, I don't know what comes next, but I do think there is a lot of widespread, discontent with it. And I think that's one thing that we're leaning into. Again, I don't know what's coming next, but I really do think a lot of what we're describing here is bad. And, as someone like Curtis Yarvin says, maybe it will remain with us. It could remain with us indefinitely because it still is, codified within power structures that still exist. But like the PR for it and the general perception, I really do think has slipped a lot since 2020.
It's not sexy at all.
Not. Yeah.
And it's not fun. And I think people are seeing the fruits of it. If it lands you Joe Biden and Kamala Harris.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's just not cool. Anything else is just, I'm just leaving. It's again, I'm not even interested in playing that game at all. There's no sizzle at all. It's not fun or interesting. It's,
and crucially, you're playing a different game now. We all are. Like, you started AOD, we started New Right. I wrote a novel. You're writing plays, and you have started Badmouth Theater Company, which is producing regularly. Like, you've produced 4 plays in the past year, right?
We did a reading series of 5 plays, including my play moderation, and then we did 4 radio play type readings. You can get those at badmouthtc.com, including the last one we did. It was It's All Red, like a metaphor or something, by this great young playwright named Monty D. Montalegre. And that play, seriously, put it in your ears. It's 40 minutes long, free. It's at badmouthtc.com. Just click on the podcast button. It's All Red. This dude wrote this play that is so theatrical. There's no way it's ever going to be made into a movie. And we're adapting moderation into a screenplay right now. So I don't have anything, Glengarry Glen Ross is one of the all-time bangers, great movie adapted from a play. So that's fine. But it's just so theatrical, and it's just all about the color red. And it's kind of a metaphor for meme stocks and the market nuking. So it was just this it's a perfect example of a play that sits in a moment in time where I don't know how long it took Monty to write it, but it couldn't have taken him years. I mean, it's a 30, 40 page play. And it's just this nice, neat, funny, absurd, bloody, dangerous, sexy, goofy play that you could get your friends together and do. You could find Monty and email him and say, hey, we want to do your play at this pub or this, bar in Soho or in Washington Heights or in Mar Vista, wherever you are, do it locally. Theater demands that locality. That's one thing I love about it. It forces you back into the local, back into the body, back into the present. And that play is it's so funny. And as somebody who's ridden the meme coin thing from the bottom to the top to the bottom again, and now it's coming back, it's just like his play captures that. And talking about that essay on IM 1776 that you pointed out. Am I saying that right? IM? Is that what that is?
We actually, in an upcoming pod with Mark, we discussed the correct pronunciation, and it's both IM 1776 or I'm 1770. He hasn't decided. He's like, it's both are cool by him. So
I love what they're doing.
You're good either way.
I love what they're doing there. And that article that you sent by, what is it, Aeneas
Tacitus Minor.
Yes, Aeneas.
That's his real name, by the way.
Yes, indeed.
Legal name.
Right. Indeed, his legal name. Yeah. In any event, he makes the case in that article that the so-called right, whatever you want to call it, right, left, dissident, people who are not inside this mainstream, the corpse, the maggot strewn corpse of this dead thing that everybody knows is dead, which can offer no vitality and no humor and no fun and no support anymore either. And that's maybe the last straw. You can't even nuzzle up to the corpse and get a little warmth like Luke, hacks open his tauntaun to survive.
Yeah.
You can't even do that anymore. It's dead. In any case, if you want to fight against it, theater is so good for that because it's so immediate. It doesn't take 3 years to write a play the way it might take to write a novel.
No, absolutely. And also it brings people together. You're in the same room, you're watching stuff, you like, you can turn to the person next to you and talk about it. Whereas like a novel, like I just wrote a novel. I love writing novels. I love reading novels. But if I want to talk about my novel, I have to get on a fucking podcast or something. Whereas like if you want to, see a play, you can, you go out, you have dinner, after the play, you talk about it with your friends. Maybe, it's a small thing. You have dinner with the producers or the playwrights. It's it's a communal thing.
Go hang
No,
out with
that's-
actors.
Yeah.
Yeah. Somebody posted on Twitter, it's one of my favorite takes about theater recently. They said, you have to be so horny to want to make theater. And I was like,
It's true.
It's true. That's great. I love it.
Yeah, no,
we
I was going to say, I mean, one of the things that's always been exciting to me about your work, Kevin, with the theater, going back to when we talked about moderation. That was, if people want to know more about moderation, not only should they watch it or listen to it, but also Kevin's first appearance on New Right, we talked a lot about moderation, as I recall. So it's you can go back and check that too. But going back to the first time I saw moderation and then kind of seeing more with Badmouth leading up to this episode, is it's always exciting to see how social and how much interaction. And it's not like you're on there with a bunch of frog Twitter guys either. Like, these are actual just real people, working actors in the real world, and there's a cross pollination between you bring the flavor maybe from our corner of the internet to an extent, but then it's like real art done in the real world, and it can be anyone can go and see it, and that's what's really exciting. Like, I'm a novelist too, like Dan. You write your book, you go on podcasts, that's great. I love our corner of the internet, but at the same time, like, that can be a much more isolated art form, to write alone and then to promote online, like finding ways to break into different audiences and again have that cross pollination. I think is really cool. That's one of the great things about Badmouth Theater and your other theatrical.
Well, that's very nice. And one of the things I love about theater is that the spirit to go into theater is always, oh, there's no career here. And I love that, because we live in this. We were talking about the waspish origins of the United States, and this isn't a knock against wasps per se, but it is a knock against the culture of work. Like, no, I just want to, and I'm a classic Catholic. Like, no, I just no. I want to put my feet up. Yeah, I don't care if you want to stereotype. Like, I'm not living to work. I'm not.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so loathsome. It's one of the very worst things about America. It really is.
Completely agree. Yeah.
I was just interviewing for jobs. I have normie jobs like other people. I build websites. I'm actually working on a website for Peachy Keenan. She's got her domestic extremist coming out. So I help people with that kind of thing. I do copywriting, technical copywriting. And I was interviewing for a gig here recently with somebody in the UK, and she just was like, I just can't believe, because they were talking about their time off policy and how the Americans can have unlimited time off and will not take it. And it's like, what is wrong with us? Have you ever been to Europe in July or August? It's over, bro.
Yeah,
it's over. Nice. And there's one of the things that we say in our corner a lot is, we don't have to live like this. And in that sense, we don't. You can just, in any case.
I was in England in August, and they are drunk as hell in August.
Well, that's not,
nice. Well, okay, in England they're always drunk as hell.
Sure, but really, that is one of the very nice things about theater is don't go into it thinking I'm going to have a career, but you're going to get what, because we do have this transactional mentality. Well, what's in it for me? And it's like, well, if you're a young person, young man or a woman, but I'm going to speak as a man, don't go do Toastmasters or some dumb shit like that. Like, go into the theater. Go learn how to give a monologue. Go get some Shakespeare into your mouth. Learn a monologue from Julius Caesar or from The Tempest.
Definitely. Yeah, no. I did a lot of theater in high school, and I think it continues to just benefit me as a artist and as like a social being as well. Yeah.
And if you missed out on it in high school, I didn't do it in high school. I was I was a very awkward kid. I only did it after I got out of college. And it totally changed my life, just totally, utterly transformed my life. And at no point did I ever have the thought, oh, I'm going to get paid to do this or blah, blah, blah. It's not how I'm wired. I'm not a status seeker. I'm not a career. I come from the Midwest. We have this whole different, weird, alien set of values where people talk to me about like how important status is. And I go like, what? Like, that's just not, I never consciously think about my status. I only think about it when something's like really starting to bother me. So it's totally alien to me that there are people who sit down, I'm sure present company excluded, there are people who sit down and really like ponder, well, how do I get ahead, and how do I get to the next level, and how do I please this boss in order to get, it's just like, it's just such an alien thought to me. So that's one of the beautiful things about theater, is that because it's so hopeless in America, because you're never going to be Lin-Manuel Miranda.
Yeah.
Like, just embrace the hopelessness of it and just make your own shit, and you might be surprised what ends up happening. You might get into a good MFA program, or your little theater might affect somebody, and who knows, but just don't do it for any of those other reasons. Just do it to do the same way for Art of Darkness. We would continue to make this show even if nobody listened. And I think that's the pure place. And yeah, you got to kick the money changers out of the temple in your own mind. Your mind is that temple. You got to worry about money. Yeah, you got to worry about insurance. Yeah, you got to worry about all that stuff. But just get them, throw them out, and do the pure thing, the thing that makes you ecstatic, and the thing that puts you right on the edge of embarrassing yourself. Theater is very embarrassing.
Which is incidentally one of the reasons why I think something like Badmouth will succeed, because we were listening to it for the pod, and so I was re-listening to Moderation, your very good play, Kevin, and listening to One Good Marriage. And this is like, I've seen a lot of theater in the past 3 or 4 years. I live in New York. I get dragged to things for various reasons. And I've seen a lot. It's just a lot of it is dead on stage, dead on, and like people pretend it's good. They're like, oh, clapping like seals, or maybe they think it's good and they're tasteless. I don't know. But the stuff that you have there is more vital. Like One Good Marriage, that really grabbed me. That was like, I'm listening to it, and the kind of like, it foregrounds the kind of the conclusion, the climax a little bit, but then you have to work through the whole play to get the explanation, to understand why we got there. It reminded me a bit of Fight Club in that regard. And it's like you have more room to maneuver if your industry is completely moribund, because you can just start something new. And that, to me, that's what you're kind of doing with Badmouth. And It's All Red. That, like, I enjoyed it, and it made me really want to see it on stage, because I'm hearing about people's heads falling off, and I'm like, I want to see their heads fall off. I want to see how would this be rendered on stage.
Yeah, I mean, and the fourth play we did was Other Life Forms, which is just a modern play about an alien coming to Earth. You could do anything in the theater, and I love that. And I love poor theater. Some of the very best plays I've seen were in backyards in Austin, Texas. Saw a production of Proof in a backyard, because a lot of that play takes place on a porch.
I can see that.
Yeah, I love that. So again, no excuses, and you could be an impresario too. Like, a playwright now. If you're listening to this, a playwright. I'm out there. Talk to people, connect with people. You have to put the pieces together to make theater, and it's never done alone. And I love that. And we for each of the 4 plays that we have so far on the Badmouth podcast, we also did interviews. So we got to talk to Sean Raycraft, who's a real heavy duty playwright from Canada. He crossed over. One Good Marriage was like a big breakout play for him, and it's like a little two-hander that just punches way above its weight. And it launched a TV career for him. So he splits time between Canada and in the US here. And sometimes you can make it. You can start out in the theater. It can happen.
He jumped from One Good Marriage to writing for TV.
Yeah, I think he got called up because I think he won like their big Canadian playwriting award. It can happen, man. I mean,
Nice.
I've made money. I've made money in the theater just through getting into the MFA program, and I won a little fellowship. But
Yeah.
you can't make it be about that. That's not why you
No,
set out
no.
to do it, because you'll go nuts, if you do. And also, like, I keep talking about the money changers and all the rest, and that machinery in your head. I think, again, thinking about Crowley a lot these days, like how do you hack your own brain? How do you, especially as you get older,
Mm-hmm.
because you're like that boat that's been at sea for a long time, matey.
Yeah.
And like sometimes you got to come into port and scrape the barnacles off. Uh,
Yeah, no. Like I
Definitely.
think the
No,
fact
yeah.
that like we have very little prospect of ever making money, on this side of the internet, it's helpful for the art because, I'm never thinking, maybe for better or worse, maybe Matt will think this is for worse, but I'm never thinking about how we're gonna make money with the new right.
No, yeah, no,
I
no, absolutely
yeah.
not. Me neither.
I'm
Yeah.
like, oh well, this is clearly never gonna make any money. Let's just do what we want. And the same thing with my novel. Like, I'm like, oh, like I'm writing it. I'm like, will this offend people? Of course it will offend people. Am I ever going to make money with it? Probably not. But I mean, like, that's the best art when you like let go of any sense of like, how will this impact my standing financially or otherwise in society? When you just kind of like, well, yes, you should be concerned about your standing in society, your artistic standing, whether people like your work and think it's good. That's what you should be concerned about. But whether the right people like it, not whether these idiots like it, whether people who have open minds like it, which is not to say necessarily just right-wing people, but people who have open minds. Like, there's many there's many of them out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, and I was just going to co-sign what you're saying with the Crowley of it all. I mean, get more into it on Art of Darkness. Obviously, there's any number of questionable things about Crowley's behavior, but I do, and I had Alex Kazemi, who's something of a modern occultist, on this podcast a few episodes ago, and I think that obviously that would probably raise red flags for some people, but with some of the kind of esoteric stuff, and not to speculate about anyone's behavior, but even Brad Kelly, your co-host, has his whole thing with tarot and whatnot. There is some, not that I would ever advocate someone get into occultism per se, but even with someone like Crowley, with some of the more problematic elements, there is that basic element of how can I trick my brain into achieving more and to affecting reality that I have found pretty beneficial as an artist. So I do think that can have a positive effect.
the two of you have inspired me to think about, and I don't know if I'll ever do it, but to think about writing a novel. Like, I tried it when I was younger, but I'm a natural extrovert. I get energy from people and from being around people and from yapping. You can probably tell. And up to a point, when I hit my limit, then I totally shut down. But I push it all the way. And so I got lonely trying to write these novels. So they ended up being terrible because I wasn't happy. And, I was young and stupid. What did I really have to write about? But I don't know, both of your novels, I just go like, ooh, this would be kind of nice and fun. And I don't have to rely on any producers and
Exactly.
so I
You
don't
control that
know.
whole world. And you'd be surprised. It's like, even if you are extroverted, you kind of like form a relationship with your characters, as gay as that sounds.
No, yeah.
You
No,
like,
you
you
sound
kind of,
schizophrenic, Dan.
yeah, no, it's kind of, yeah, like you will commune with them in your head all day.
Well,
And
dude, the way
maybe
that
if you're,
yeah.
maybe if you are a schizo, that's not the best thing, but I
I
don't
mean,
know.
when I was in my playwriting prime, when I was writing plays and like really writing plays, and I still do. I have the draft of a new play that I want to get going, and again, now that I have we have a tiny platform and an audience, and it's like, oh, I kind of be cool to write a play and know that 400 or 500 people online at least will be good, get exposed to it. That's kind of cool,
Yeah.
and in Salah, moderation gets a proper production at some point.
Yeah.
If the American theater wasn't totally broken, it would have. By now, but that's neither here nor there. There's literally just no outlet right now. Everything's all backed up because of the
COVID.
because of COVID, and then also I'm not the hot young thing anymore, and I put myself out there in a pretty big way on the Bird website. So we'll see if it's going to get a production. It's going to be an unorthodox. We may just do it ourselves. But oh, what was I saying? I can't even remember. I was talking about
writing
moderation.
novels.
No, I just it would just be such. I don't know. I was reading your guys' stuff, and it's just like it would be kind of like tidy and nice and fun to, but but the way you talk about Spencer Grunhauer, you talk about him like he's a buddy next door.
I mean, he felt like it. Like as I'm like writing it, it's just like suddenly like I might actually, in conjunction, I'm gonna say this now. I don't know if I've said it before on the pod, but when Nutcranker drops, I might do a Spencer Twitter account. You might join. Spencer Grunhauer might join Twitter. So
yeah,
I think it's a great idea. I think it's hilarious. Yeah, it's such a brilliant character and so humorous. I mean, man, the film version, the film adaptation of that. I think you can't. Don't be modest about your books either, guys. Like you don't know what could happen. You never know. There might be an auteur who comes along and somebody who is looking for something different, who says, "This is the next Cosmopolis." Like this is
the one thing I will say is people who are let's say not very feminist have like read my novel and said like, wow, man, this is pretty misogynist. And I'm like, oh shit, if you think that, I'm in trouble. But I don't think so. Exactly.
The way I read it is that Spencer is the butt of the joke.
Exactly.
The entire time.
Yeah. Right? It's like kind of like you're supposed to feel some empathy for Spencer, but yeah, he is the butt of the joke in many respects. And so like I think there's something in it for like there's a lot of ambiguity. I'd say there's a lot of ambiguity about the author's genuine opinions. Want that on the record?
yes. Well, but this is the thing, and this is the thing that the left or that we call the wokes can't seem to realize anymore, is that you could have the ability to present something and not prescribe something.
Yeah. No, exactly.
How is that controversial at all? How is that? Yeah.
Like
right.
I feel like if you took like Portnoy's complaint. Like I'm trying to ask people have, and they're like, well, this man's clearly a misogynist. And like, I mean, I don't think that's true of Philip Roth, but like, even if like that were, you can't tell based on someone's writing exactly, because like you are describing or inhabiting a character. And like that, you have to allow a certain amount of license for people to. And also, like generally, when you write about someone, you're like diving into their vices, their flaws. That's what makes them an interesting character. And so, yeah, you're probably not going to present a kind of like rosy vision of the world and everyone. That would be boring.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and Dragon Day 2 takes on a lot of like taboo.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Difficult stuff. I mean. Yeah.
No, and talk a little bit about that with Astral. It's far from a prescriptive novel about behavior, I would say.
What are people attracted to in drama and in art? I mean, it boils down to, and I think Polya talks about this, it's sex and death in drama.
Yeah,
that's it.
Absolutely.
And every iteration and perturbation of all those things. And I think that's one of the reasons Crowley is such an interesting character, because he seems to be the quintessence of these things, and a man who was so repressed in his childhood and bucked it so much that, in a funny way, he's almost kind of an honorary American, because you could say he spent time in America too, but he's just such an individualist and so very against the established order of the day and so anti-Victorian. And I think even the most reactionary ortho bro today is more like Crowley than they would ever want to admit or accept.
Well, I'm curious to hear what you say about that on Art of Darkness, but like I actually was going to ask because Crowley has continued to come out throughout this conversation, which I love because I also find him interesting. But yeah, I was going to ask this to kind of bring the Crowley topic in with some of the other topics we're talking about. I mean, if Crowley, it's kind of a stupid hypothetical, but that people ask, but like if Crowley was alive today, you kind of said earlier, like it's Crowley's world, living in it, you could root a lot of bad, sort of more progressive or just degenerate, quote unquote, things to a kind of Crowley mindset. But like, there's no way he'd be happy with a lot of the strictures of the wokes, as we've called them, or just the sheer boringness of a Biden-esque figurehead. I mean, would obviously it's a stupid hypothetical, what would Crowley do today, but at the same time it's almost like that transgressive energy is more on our side now. In a way,
it is, yes, and it's not a stupid hypothetical. That's how we close every Art of Darkness episode.
Oh, right, it is.
So
okay, so yeah, it's not stupid,
so you, but... Matt, yeah, you're really you're are you negging our podcast format?
I just mean to apologize for like obviously
no, I know what you're saying. No, it's funny. I frankly think it's a fascinating question, and he suffered from cancellation, quote unquote.
Right.
I mean, they called him the wickedest man in the world. The tabloids, once they picked up on him, and I think it happened after he got kicked out of Italy, and somebody died, and there was some real awful stuff that happened at Cefalù, I think is how you pronounce it.
Yeah.
Which was the Abbey of Thelema. I'm trying to get all my pronunciations right.
Mm-hmm.
Crowley, Thelema, Cefalù, Kaczynski. That one I could say. I keep writing him fan mail. I mean, we won't write me back, but the Uncle Ted, yeah, anyway, I'm just gonna let that go. I still want to write a musical about the Killdozer. I still think that
you should. That's a great one.
Like a country metal Pantera industrial goth rock and roll musical about the Killdozer. That's a play I want to go see.
Yeah, we talked about that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Marv, I got to do that at some point. If somebody wants to commission me, if Peter Thiel is listening to this and you've got some Thiel, you want to send me some bucks, I'll write anyway.
Peter, come on the pod.
Yeah, come on the pod, Peter. It's BAP. Anyway, and I'm not getting into any of that drama. I don't care. I don't care about this. Yeah. None of it. I don't care. Yeah. Stop fighting. Punch left. He suffered cancellation. They came at him hard in the papers. And it is hard to know what he would make of today's, because I think he would see it as a kind of new Puritanism.
And I don't think it'd be wrong, it's that ties in a little bit into our whole conspiracy moment within this conversation, because it's like, yes, I think there's some kind of esoteric transgressive elements, but within the power structure that be, but at the same time, like they seem very much not to have that kind of wicked energy that someone like Crowley had, you know what I mean? So that's
absolutely
kind of a line. But hey, I know we're coming up a little above 2 hours here, and I know we got to wrap before too long. But unless was there any more topics we definitely wanted to hit on the outline, Dan?
I think we pretty much hit on everything.
Yeah, I think
we originally intended to, but happy to fit in any extra or additional thoughts you might have, Kevin.
I really enjoy coming on the pod. You both are always welcome on Art of Darkness. If there's a subject you see we've done, just ping me on the Bird website. Slide into my DMs along with the
sex magicians.
All the sex. I will make time for you guys, sex magic or not. Like you can. No, but for real, you guys are always welcome on the pod.
Thanks.
Great to have you guys.
Absolutely.
Dan's obviously done it with Dunces, but I gotta find my Art of Dark debut.
I mean, and it can either be a core episode, or it can be a dark room. The dark rooms are a lower lift. Like if you see we've covered somebody and you are passionate about them, like if it's Bukowski or if it's Hemingway or whatever, just send us a message and we'll book you and have you on, because
Awesome.
we love doing those. It's just the best. And I love what you guys are doing. Your novels are inspiring. I can't wait for Nutcracker to come out. And I just love it. Let's just keep it up, man. And yeah, and don't black pill, you know, don't. And if I ever sound black pilly, you know, I got kids, I got a family, I'm building a life in America. We're all going to make it. We're going to win. And we are the adults.
Yeah,
there's nobody else. So
as they say in theater, the show must go on.
That's a good note to end on.
And it shall. All right.
I'm gonna stop it right